and welcome back to Debate Impacts. I'm Michi, a current high school public forum debater and a second generation TOC debater. Debate Impacts explores how a competitive speech and debate experience encourages students to find and use their voices over the course of their lives. This podcast will delve into the impact of scholastic debate on career paths, and we will feature some incredibly inspiring former high school and collegiate debaters who have shaped policy and law. In short, we examine how debate changes lives. In this episode, we are here with Aaron Kall, a longtime debater and current Lee H. Hess Director of Debate at the University of Michigan. In college, Aaron debated for J.W. Patterson at the University of Kentucky, where he later worked as an assistant debate coach. Now, Aaron is the coach of a collegiate policy debate powerhouse and the reigning champions of the National Debate Tournament, or NDT. Aaron also preaches the power and importance of debate outside of the classroom. He has been featured on national news several times to explain the importance of events like presidential debates and has analyzed events including the 2025 inaugural address and 2024 presidential and VP debates. He has also authored and edited several books about politics and elections, including Debating the Donald, I Do Solemnly Swear, and The State of the Union Is. So, hello, Aaron. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Is there anything in that bio portion that we missed that you would like to talk about?
Oh, no, no. Thank you so much for having me. And that was a great introduction. I could have said it better myself.
Okay, perfect. So obviously in the debate activity, you've worn a lot of different hats: student, debater, assistant coach, coach. How did you get into debate in the first place?
Yes, I grew up in South Florida, and we had this legendary teacher, Rhoda Radow, who was kind of a larger than life figure. Debate was just kind of below the level of athletics at our high school. A huge team, over 100 people, and really had a lot of cachet, and a lot of the students did that, and was just kind of drawn to it. And I was drawn to policy debate specifically. It was a lot different back then. We had tubs and accordions, and all the research and evidence was on paper. And so I love that like unique niche of it. And we traveled, like we went to tournaments at Florida State University, University of Florida. So that aspect of it was nice. And just the competitive nature. I've always been competitive in sports and debate and otherwise. And so, having there be a winner and a loser every debate, just kind of the rush of that I found really exhilarating. A lot of my friends were involved with it. And it just kind of kept getting involved deeper and deeper. I went to a debate camp at Penn State University, and then I found the University of Michigan through their summer program. I went to the Mindy in 1994 and the Michigan Classic in 1995, and just kind of fell in love with Michigan, and got to meet a lot of great high school debaters and coaches from all around the country. And that really piqued my interest in debate, and have been doing it ever since, all those years later.
Yeah. So there's elements of debate that really drew you in the first place, like the competition and the research and even like the fast-paced nature of it and the travel. Are those elements about debate that you still really get to enjoy as a coach?
Yeah, all those, kind of still remain. It may be a little bit different. And during COVID, things were a little unique, where we were debating and even had the camp for 2 summers on Zoom. But now we're kind of mostly back to normal, and a lot of those the same things that kind of drew me to it was different. We made the activity had a big change, going from the tubs and cards of paper to kind of a more digital version. But I think it's for the best in terms of accessibility and affordability, with laptops and Microsoft Word, Atom, Tab Room. These have all been great advents. But I mean, just debate is valuable in so many different ways, not just from the wins and losses and tournaments and things like that, but research. That's something that really drew me in initially as well. I loved getting really deep on a lot of different topics and literature bases, and those change from year to year, and you can really kind of educate yourself, and it aligns well with some of your academic interests. Public speaking, critical thinking, answering and asking of questions, thinking on the top of your feet, maybe something you hadn't considered, really having to deal with that in real time. Being exposed to arguments that you may not personally agree with, and the debates may not change your mind about them. It may, but if nothing else, hopefully you can have a civil discussion with others that may have different viewpoints. And if not changing, core beliefs, at least it gives you a better understanding of where they're coming from, and that there's multiple perspectives on some things that you may not have considered, and just kind of widening your mind to those things and educating yourself with the various points of view from all different perspectives, I think is very healthy. And we still, our society needs a lot of that, in today's times.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember when I started debate, like I really viewed it as an activity about arguing, but now that I've become more experienced in it, it's definitely an activity about listening. Like that's really how you win the tough rounds. You flow well, you understand what your opponents are saying so that you can actually attack it or respond to it better. So, can you think of like any examples during your debate career, whether that was as a student or as a coach, where your perspective was really changed?
Yeah, I mean, there's, when you're young, you start high school debate, you're 13, 14 years old. And, a lot of some of your beliefs or kind of thoughts on politics or really, social issues. A lot of that can be informed by just like your parents and kind of what they think. And, debate exposes you into all this different kind of research and other people. And I think a lot of time people in debate, they're kind of drawn to it, that they like to question authority, and they're kind of maybe they go a little bit against the grain. And so being exposed to those things that you may wouldn't be otherwise, I think is very important. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues. I may not want to specify which ones, but I thought you had these thoughts growing up from to things you see on television or other friends, when you then through debate get to really look at them and in qualified things and in studies and peer reviewed literature and even popular press, you definitely change your mind on fundamental things, like, well, I really never considered that. Or I think debate, there's just so many different types of people from all over the country, the world, with different backgrounds and experiences. And when you get to both debate them in the actual debates itself, but also hang out with them socially around the tournaments and tales and things like that, then just those interactions also are gonna widen your horizons and change your minds on things that you hadn't considered or even thought about or heard about these perspectives from others. So yeah, it's just so great, both inside of the debate and the topics and the research, but also all the time we spend, waiting for pairings and results and things like that, and traveling really gives you great perspective overall.
Yeah, for sure. I really like that because I do think that in debate there are kind of two different types of perspectives that you get to see. Obviously, there's like, AF versus neg, like the research that you do on the topic and like throughout the season and the discourse that you have in rounds. But I think another really beautiful part about debate is that it's a really good chance to like meet people of different backgrounds, whether that is just like them living in a different state or somebody that's had different life experiences from you and be able to see them like, every couple weeks or months. So, how do you think the debate community has changed since you were a student and now, like, now that you're a coach?
Yeah, I mean, not not all that much. I mean, there's certainly the technological changes and just everything's are going to change with the time, but all those things you just described, I couldn't agree with more. I my lifelong friends from both high school and college are those that were on my high school and college debate teams, not my randomly assigned roommate or some of the people in my major or some of the in the residence hall that I lived in. No, the people that I've maintained relationships with, 30 years plus after the fact, are my roommates from debate camp. Those on my high school and college debate team. I'm gonna see a bunch of them, very soon at the University of Kentucky. Obviously basketball is very big there. And so there's a group of us that, kind of talk about Kentucky basketball, and that brings us together at tournaments, where there's a group of us just in New York in December. And so no, I mean, it's just debate's unique. It's attracts, I think, a certain kind of person, and it's very esoteric, and there's a lot of shared respect for those that engage in it and take the time to do it. It's really hard. It requires a lot of work and research, and so a lot of mutual admiration suspects surrounding that. And so it's going to draw people together that have a lot of other similarities in common, even outside of debate, and we just spent so much time together in the debate context and traveling, and the wins and the losses kind of brings everybody close, and allows you to maintain those relationships for forever. And anytime I visit, I go to tournaments, college, high school, any friends that I have that from debate from the past decades, always try to make time to see them, get together when traveling all throughout the country, stay connected with them on social media and things like that. And so I don't think a lot of that has changed. And I tell anytime I'm recruiting students that, hey, these your teammates are going to be lifelong friends. And I see that just with camp. You go to camp and you meet people from all over the country and the world, and then you stay connected with them. Maybe you come back and see each other for several summers, or then when you're in college. And one of the great things about debate is that I think debate's one of the few kind of extracurricular activities in college that enables you to keep those relationships, even if with people from high school, even if you don't end up attending the same college with them. Getting to travel to tournaments, maybe for up to 4 years, 8, 10 tournaments a year that are, every 3, 4 weeks. You get to keep great relationships with students that go on to different colleges and universities, see them all the time. And it's much more likely that you'll maintain those relationships forever, because the travel circuit and going to the same tournaments allows you to do that. So I see the students doing the same things. The only real difference is a lot of the technology, how we debate, and the communication. Everything used to be in paper and old school, and now the debaters are probably just communicating via social media, maybe talking less, but still connected, but just in a much different way of when I was younger.
Yeah. What you said about the community really resonates with me because I remember after my first debate camp, I was genuinely shocked at how easy it was to maintain relationships with the people I had met through debate. Because every single other activity I did, it was very, very common to be like, oh, like I'll stay in contact with you, I'll see you, and then just never hear from a person again.
Yeah.
But with debate, like even if I don't see some of my friends in debate for months or even like over a year, I still talk to them regularly. I still look forward to tournaments with them. Like one of my closest friends, Jason, in debate, I've been friends with him since like 8th grade, since we were both in middle school. And I haven't seen him in almost a year, but we're like coaching camp together this summer. And it's this like really beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like riding
that's
a bike. And I think it goes back to that shared, there's the shared respect and admiration and the common interest that kind of brought us together initially. And it doesn't take much time to get back into the flow. I took Bennett and Kelly, our team from last year, to Washington, D.C. in September. They got to go to the White House and Congress. And while I was in town, my roommate from camp and from 1994 is a lawyer now at the World Bank, and we hadn't seen each other since 1994, and had lunch, and started talking about each other's families and what we'd be doing in the last 30 years. And it was like we had the distance wasn't that great, and planned to keep in touch, and so just get right back into it. And two, there's other ways, even if not in person, to stay connected through social media and LinkedIn and Facebook. At least you can see updates, kind of how people are doing, and feel some kind of connection. Drop a note anytime that there's something. But yeah, I mean lifelong friendships, it happens. And you could, even if you haven't talked to someone in a long time, just pick up the phone and not feel like it's coming out of left field, because you had this such close bond and connection that many years ago, and that I think that lasts forever.
definitely. So would you say that these kinds of bonds are formed, naturally by virtue of debate as an activity, or is there anything that you do as a coach to kind of foster that sense of belonging on the team?
Mhm. Yeah, I think some of the students have some things in common to begin with, but for at Michigan, we're fortunate. We have really nice office space for our students in a debate office in the Michigan Union, and you have to have access on your identification card to get in. So it's just reserved for debaters. It's almost open 24 hours a day. It's open until 2 a.m. at night, and so something like that just kind of like fosters that environment, community. I'm in the office every day. I see the debaters in their space, working not just on debate, talking about arguments and research, but also working on homework together, kind of, studying, group studying, and then just hanging out and talking socially. But little like spaces like that, allow for that. and really they spend a lot of time together and late at nights, and so that's going to kind of cause that good relationship. And then a lot of travel, and anytime you have travel friends or partners, then you're going to spend a lot of time on planes and in vans, hotels, lobbies, and meals. And that's another great way to bond and tell stories. When I debated at Kentucky for JW, it was a long time ago. We didn't get to fly to as many tournaments as others, for just kind of budgetary, but also team bonding reasons. We would drive to Texas um, and New Hampshire and Connecticut and Boston, and those were really long rides. And you learn a lot about everyone during that time, tell stories. And he used to play music and do trivia, and so those are just really great bonding times. I look back very fondly on those, and it just gives you great stories to tell. And so anytime I get together with some of the my old friends and teammates, he said, "Remember the time we got snowed in here, or we stayed at this motel and this happened." And so just those lived experiences and stories, you just or provide great memories and character, and you can talk about for forever and ever. But debate also, it has the vocabulary we use, and it's just very esoteric, and it's I think that kind of you have to understand the lingo to kind of fit in and communicate. And so it's just a very unique activity that it's only for a few. It's not very audience or spectator friendly, and so it's this really close knit community. And then I think that's part of the real reason that those kind of bonds and relationships are formed.
Yeah. Yeah, the debate community is something that stays with you for a really long time, if not your entire life, whether that's through like the people that you meet or even like the skills or like the lingo that you learn in debate. What are some other ways that you would say debate has kind of changed or shaped your life?
Mhm. I mean, it's really everything that I have in my life. I think I can nearly attribute to debate and my parents, let's say. But I was from Davie, Florida, very small school. I found somehow the University of Michigan through an advertisement, their camp. I loved it so much. I came back for a second year. My two lab leaders were Scott Harris and David Brownell. David Brownell was a former both Kentucky and Michigan debater. He reached out to JW at the end of the camp and said, I had this guy Aaron in my lab. He's kind of, you should check him out, recruit him. I think you could have something there. And if not for that, JW probably, wouldn't have found me, but he was a great recruiter, and would fly to a tournament that I was competing in. He flew to Florida to meet with my parents and put on the hard sell. We did a trip to Lexington, and he offered me at that time a full scholarship to debate in college. And that was important for my parents coming from Florida. They have a very generous kind of full scholarship program to go to any public schools in state. And so my parents were supportive of me debating, but said that if you do it, you need to be financially supportive because we have the scholarship in Florida. So JW, that allowed me to do it. I was really interested in, because Kentucky has such a long history of being a successful debate program. And so he gave me that opportunity. And that is the reason I'm coaching debate today. I coached Kentucky for 1 year after I graduated. I taught my partner, a debate partner, Russ Hubbard, and we made it all the way to the finals of the national debate tournament that year. And then that enabled me to get hired at Michigan in the next year. And then I've been at Michigan ever since 2002. JW hired me to work at the University of Kentucky debate camp for 6 summers, and those are some of the best my best years of my life. And the last summer, the summer of 2001, he also hired Rachel Saloom, who had won the CETA National Championship and was a debater. And we met there, kind of working at the camp, and been together ever since the 2001 debate camp at the University of Kentucky. I also partly got the Michigan job because I worked with another lab leader at the Kentucky debate camp. And so all my professional success, personal success, and marriage, I can directly link to debate and the opportunities that it presented. And again, so many of my very best friends are both from high school, college, debate, coaches, And so it's just been such a great welcoming community to me, and couldn't think about doing anything else, and certainly not doing it at any other place than the University of Michigan, which has been so great for almost these last 25 years.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Wow. Um, yeah, a lot of my like very close relationships I can definitely attribute to debate. Probably the friends that I'm going to stay in touch with the most easily, I would say, in college are going to be like all of my debate friends, stuff like that. So it sounds like you like not only have you gotten a lot from this activity, but you clearly put so much back in, obviously, as like, a coach throughout the years. So why would you say that debate is such an important skill or like such an important activity to be in now more than ever?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about some of the big skills like public speaking, critical thinking, and research, understanding both sides of an argument. Listening is something that you mentioned, and those are all skills that are just so important, no matter what your major is, what your profession is. At Michigan, I get to work a lot with all of our alums, going back to those that maybe debated here in the 1960s, and we have a lot of medical doctors and politicians, hedge fund managers, professors, all different major engineers, different majors, different professions, and they all just say that they did so many different things in college, but if they could like had to point to one thing responsible for their success and kind of where they are, they'd say it's debate, and that's why they enjoy giving back to it so much. The amount of time they put into it, the people they met, the skills that it gave, the connections. I think one of the big benefits with kind of seeing debate through is just the networking. I mean, you go to a school, you're part of that school's debate network, you're part of the overall kind of debate network of all the different schools. I mean, we have a lot of our alums kind of help our younger debaters with graduate school, with professional internships and jobs. And even if it's not a Michigan person, they get interviewed by someone that debated somewhere else, but they know debate, they know how hard it is, what it takes to balance, school and debate, and it's just invaluable. Just the entire package of skills. I know these are things that employers are looking for. There's a great track record of successful debaters, both in high school and college, doing these amazing things in all these different professions all over the country, all over the world. And they're just kind of part of this overall network. And so being a part of that is, I think, really important and gives you a leg up on a very competitive, landscape that exists. And playing the odds, you just if you do well, kind of make these connections, then you really have a good chance to succeed and follow in the footsteps of all these other very very famous debate alumni.
Yeah, for sure. I would say you're totally right. I always think about it from like the skill angle. Like everybody's like, oh, debate teaches you public speaking, it teaches you research, and all of that is true. But this angle about like the connections and stuff like that is something I never really considered, but it does make a lot of sense. I would go so far to say that like speech and debate and just the skills that you gain from it are definitely tools for, upward mobility, getting a job, like getting a stable income, stuff like that. So this activity is obviously great, right? Like so many students are already in it, but obviously many students can still benefit from it. So, what do you think is a good way to increase access to debate, whether that's across, like geographic areas or across like different groups?
Yeah, there are a lot of barriers to entry. Like I mentioned previously, some of the like the lingo, the abbreviations we use, you kind of, don't really understand until you're in it for a little bit exactly kind of what all those means. Although a lot of different activities and things have kind of something similar. Depending on the form of debate, sometimes speed or kind of talking quickly, that could be very tough for people to deal with. But I think the technology changes and moving debate online a little bit. I think that's increased access. I mean, I do recruiting Zooms and meetings with people all over the world. That's something I couldn't do previously. Unless I was at a tournament and like meeting with someone physically. Now, I have no problem answering questions and providing advice, through that way. The advent of these different online tournaments. We have some space restrictions at our Michigan high school tournament in the fall, and so we we host a policy division in person, but then we have a lot of public forum interest, and have had a very substantial just online division from with teams all over the country, all over the world, many countries, and so that is great. And through that, and through different Zoom license and things, you can keep costs down. You don't have to worry about travel and things. And so I think that's helpful. During the pandemic, getting like Kelly Phil, when she was debating here, she was debating from Taipei, but online in that LA, even she wasn't able to come to be on campus because we're at the height of the pandemic. She was still able to participate in the college debate tournaments, and so that was very helpful. So that's definitely something that helps. Getting younger students involved. Different forms of debate. There's not everything is just for everybody, and so knowing that, especially in high school, there's a bunch of different kind of things you can do, and then and different levels as well. In college, most of the tournaments that we attend, they have various levels and skill. A novice, junior varsity, varsity. So if you are interested in pursuing it further, you don't have to start at the very highest levels. You can start out and kind of see how you do before advancing further. Financial support, obviously, the JW Patterson Foundation, their help supporting people go to the Tournament of Champions, with travel waivers and entry fees. They're very generous in providing scholarships to students for summer programs. And so sometimes it's just kind of, some students just need a little bit of support to maybe get their programs off the ground, or then experience success that can cause them to, be a little bit more sustainable programs, make connecting people that are interested in teaching in some of these programs. Sometimes it was really tough during the recession in 2008-9. A lot of programs got rid of stipends and those specializations. So kind of getting people in that have some connection, making sure they can participate in that. Even volunteers. I mean, I think some of the reason high school programs are so successful is because you have these really dedicated former debaters that just love it. And even though they have full-time jobs, they want to still teach debate and go to tournaments. And, we definitely, I think, need more of that. And so kind of giving back, you learn so much from debate, making sure others can experience that, I think, is important. So, no, I mean, there's, I think it's very strong. And, since COVID, there was a little kind of ebb and flow there, but I think we're, doing really well. Public forum, just looking at the numbers of some of those, the tournaments and everything, that's a relatively new division that is kind of increased interest. And so, maybe expanding that or expanding into different, even other divisions. But yeah, there's so many things that can be done so we can make sure that people have access to this really valuable skill. And always certainly happy to do my part in supporting that.
Yeah, I love all of those initiatives, especially UMich Public Forum Online, just because the Canyon Crest team won last year. And then one of my best friends, Ricky Balu, won it this year. So that's been great for me. I love it.
Yeah,
But
no, we also like I said, the camp was online fully for 2 summers, like most, but even the last 2 years where we've been back in person, we've still offered a small online component. Because some people can't join us in person, they're doing other things, they maybe can't afford, the residential aspect of it. So, reduce fees to enable people to get some kind of experience, even if it can't be in person because of other restrictions they may have.
yeah, for sure. I've definitely noticed that as a trend with other camps as well. I know camps like VBI and Libertas, I believe, are doing merit-based scholarships for debaters, which always makes me happy because it means that the kids that are super passionate about debate but are somehow limited by things like being able to travel or funding are able to do the things that they love. It makes me really happy. So, Aaron, thank you so much for all of the work that you do at UMich and just for being here with us tonight. And then for everybody who's watching, students, parents, and coaches can support our cause by donating to the J.W. Patterson Foundation. The link is available at our website. So thank you so much for being on here.
Oh, thanks for having me so much.